Welcome, everyone, to the Adult Adoptee Mental Health Support class. Today, I am here with Hillary Wilson, and I am Jeanette and we are both psychotherapists working in this field of adoption, and we are also adult adoptees, and I myself am also a former foster youth. And so today we wanted to join together and share with you some of the tools and tips that we provide our own clients in our sessions, in our private practices, so that you can have the tools available and ready for yourself today, especially in this most vulnerable time. So having said that, please grab some paper, pen, please also get some tissues, because some of the things we talk about, you may feel emotional about and have feelings about, and I want you to feel comfortable enough to allow those feelings to come out if you're feeling any sensations, thoughts, feelings, and allow yourself to be with us today. I'll introduce myself, and then Hillary will introduce herself. I didn't always think that I would become a therapist, but once I realized how many children were adopted and were in the foster care system, I was compelled to help other kids, because for me, I believe that I was lucky that I was adopted. And I know some adoptees don't like that, but I was adopted at 7.5. And I was one of those kids that may not have been adopted. And so for me, I'm grateful that that happened for me, because it gave me a second chance in life. And I know for others, during the baby scoop era, being adopted was not something to be grateful for. And I honor those who come from that experience. I also have a nonprofit organization called Celia Center. We have support groups now online on Zoom. We have arts festivals. We have mental health conferences. We have one scheduled for November. And I hope that you can join us at any of our Celia Center events. So thank you for being here. And I'm here to support you, see you, receive you, and give you guidance. So I'm so glad that you could join us here today. So Hillary, welcome.
Everyone, thank you for inviting me to join you today. I have been working in adoptions for 29 years. I've been licensed for, 20 years. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and growing up as an adopted person, realized that there were so many issues, themes that came up as a person myself and my family, and then wanting to talk with other adoptees about their experience. I wrote my thesis on adoption and identity, and I've been working in the field ever since. So I met Jeanette when I was working at the Adoption Support Center years ago, and we worked together, and now here we are. We both have a passion for this work. So I have a private practice in Torrance, California, and I also work a great deal with adolescents. So I work at a school in the area with the teenagers on different counseling issues, and sometimes adoption is part of that. In my private practice, most of my practice is adoption. So thank you for having me today, and I'm looking forward to this topic.
All right, so we're going to start with the first topic, which is, my first topic is reclaiming your sense of self-worth and value. And I want to talk about this. This is a mental health class. What happens for children, for infants who have been removed from their biological mothers at birth, or 3 months or 15 months, the attachment then becomes compromised. And what that means is the infant has experienced a traumatic event because that baby has formed an attachment to their mother in the womb. And so what happens is this initial relationship that became compromised now becomes the blueprint for all other relationships in that baby's life. And that's why adoptees do have what's called a vulnerability and a sensitivity to any perceived sense of rejection. And why? Because the baby feels, and what the question is for adoptees is, how could any mother give away her baby? There must have been something wrong with me. So what happens is the baby's impact, their self-esteem is impacted, their sense of worth, their sense of value, because babies are egotistic. When something happens around them, they believe it's their fault. So we do share a vulnerability, and it pains me because I know this part and I've had to work on this part for my whole life, and I still work on this part. It's recognizing we have a part of us that feels unworthy, unvaluable, because we didn't remain with our birth families. And we have a higher sensitivity and vulnerability, and even people who were not adopted also have this part. This is part of the human experience, but for us it goes even deeper. So we're going to learn how to trust this inner compass, this part of ourselves, and how we reclaim our sense of worth and value. And I'm going to give you some tools to recognize and honor you have this part. We're going to go into our imagination. Okay, so just get comfortable, taking a deep breath through your nose, and bring the breath down to your belly. Fill up your belly with air. 1, 2, 3. See if you can hold it, and release it with an ocean breath. And I want you to release that breath longer than you would normally, and be conscious of that. Because that's going to calm down this internal, what's called the polyvagal nerve in the body, that gets hijacked when we're stressed and overwhelmed. Okay? So I want you to imagine yourself, your adult self, in a peaceful place right now, wherever that can be in the world. Peaceful place. It can be anywhere in the world. It can be a place you imagine that gives you a sense of relief. Okay? Now what I want you to imagine is you holding your baby self that feels hurt, wounded, at times not feeling good about themselves. And I want you to hold yourself in your arms. Now this can be very emotional for people, and that's okay. We want to go into our trauma, because the more we go into it, the more we can heal it. And running away from these parts of ourselves is the biggest piece of our mental health needs. It's going back to our wounds, reparenting our wounds, and nurturing and holding ourselves with ourselves together. So this is one exercise, just to be in holding yourself, and imagine yourself looking at your baby self, and you tell your baby self, I love you, you're worthy, you're valuable. And you can do this a few minutes, a few times a week, just valuing and giving yourself that worth and value. Because here's what we need to accept and honor and recognize. Attempting to receive validation of value and worth outside of us, we will be disappointed. We need to find it within ourselves. And what happens is, if we're not aware that we even have this self, we're going to act it out from our outer child, and an attempt to get this validation from our relationships, our parents, and friends. And when we feel the slightest dismissal or the slightest perceived rejection from them, our infant, our baby self, will feel wounded. And what we need to do is recognize that's not about them meeting my needs. It's about me meeting my needs and validating me as worthy and valuable, even if someone doesn't acknowledge or looks at us a different way that doesn't feel particularly inviting and validating. My phrase, if you have heard me speak before, is it's not a rejection of you. It's a reflection of them. We learn how to self-validate ourselves and adopt ourselves. So that's one piece, imagining holding yourself. The second piece of this is writing to your inner self, your inner child, having a little dialogue. So whenever, any day that you're feeling triggered, which is your inner sense of value becomes compromised. It could be something happens at work, or your significant other looks at you a certain way and you're triggered and you start feeling, I'm all bad, I'm invaluable, I'm unworthy. See, we reject ourselves. We validate that rejection. Anytime you're triggered, I want you to go to writing and write to your inner child and speak to them in a way that helps them understand that this is not their fault, that you love them, that you're here for them, that you support them. Okay? And the third piece of my first point is taking action steps and baby steps. And that is doing positive, self-loving activities for yourself every day. That means taking a walk with yourself, doing things alone with yourself that support your best you. Every day, do something. It could be, we're in quarantine time. Some people are able to go out, some people are still stuck at home. It could be, even if you're home in your pajamas, go take a shower, go get dressed like you would if you were going to an event, dress up, put on makeup, take care of yourself, and walk around feeling good about yourself. Saying, I can feel good about myself right here, right now, in my life. I am reclaiming my self-worth. It starts with you. So, action steps, self-loving, positive actions that you do every day. Now, this one step that I'm giving you, do it for 3 months. Okay, and all of the steps that we're sharing with you today. 3 months. So, writing whenever you find yourself triggered, self-activities of self-love every day if you can, and using your imagination tool of holding your baby self, infant self, and giving them self-love, and releasing, if you do feel emotional, release those tears, because part of our process is grieving, and that's what Hillary will be talking about next. Okay? So that's step number 1. So Hillary, you're next.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you, Jeanette. That was great. I really, I enjoy hearing from you, and I love that reclaiming self-worth. I would actually love to just put a sticky note on my mirror and write a little positive message to myself saying, yes, I am worth it. I am okay. I like to, have that validation. So I'll use a sticky note. Thank you. So my topic today is ongoing triggers of loss for adoptees are going through an unusual experience. For an infant to be separated from their mother at birth is not what we expect. And with adoption, that's what happens. And we all start off with having to make sense of, and in a nonverbal way, what has gone on for us, and that loss we're experiencing going into our new family's arms, grieving. So it's something that gets triggered over and over. We've lost our family history. We've lost our connection with our first parent. So that I find we get triggered over and over again. If you're bonding with your family, then you're going to have a lot of healing that's going to go on. There's going to be a lot of time, and whether the bond is at that initial time when you first go home, whatever that next family is that you have, or if your foster child adopted in at 7.5, that bonding can be healing at that time. So whenever those bonds occur with different people, we're healing. But the triggers come up. Then one of the triggers that I think of first is when we're in school and we have to do a family tree. And that often provokes a lot of emotion for adoptees because there's a notice of, well, wait, who am I writing my family tree about? There's a lot of information I don't know about myself. So that can trigger a lot of emotion for a young child and confusion. They would start to write their family tree. I remember doing mine, but thinking, wait a minute, I had this other family, and how do I, what does that mean for me, that noticing that loss at that time. Another trigger is during the teen years when you prepare for launching and moving out of your home and going off to college. Let me backtrack. Teen years, more identity. So, I'd say that the trigger is when you're starting to figure out, who am I and where do I fit in and how do I belong with my family? And kids will go through a stage of separation, individuation, and where they're pulling away from their parents, and they're naturally going through the development of separating, but struggling too to know, well, who am I? If I don't look like you, I don't have the same talents as you, maybe I'm not as good in school as my parents were in school. There's that struggle with that trigger of loss, that I don't know that piece of myself. Then again, it comes up with launching when you're moving on to college or you're moving out of your parents' home. And that's really scary for adult adoptees, that feeling of, well, wait a minute, if I leave, will I be welcome back? Am I still part of this family? This is my family. But that first time I connected in the wound, that person was then gone. So will that happen again for me? So there's a lot of fears about, and again, triggers about loss. So a lot of adult adoptees will have trouble launching. They'll have difficulty leaving their home and struggling to feel confident. If that attachment's secure, even if it is secure in your adoptive home, it still can be quite a struggle. But we hope the message from adoptive parents is that reassurance. Yes, this is always your home. We want to see you move forward and move into adult activities in your life, but you are always part of this family. And that reassurance is so important to adult adoptees, to know that they are always part of that family forever. So again, different triggers come up, and you might think of other life stages. For me, as one of the stages I went through is becoming a parent myself. Just kind of thinking back about how when I had my son, wait a minute, I'm connecting with my child for the first time, but that did trigger for me a lot of the loss of my lack of relationship with my birth mother, knowing that she didn't get to hold me in the hospital, that I was feeling nervous about having my first child because of that, and that can be another trigger. So when I think about tools for this, what do we do with these triggers? How do we help manage our emotions? I do like to use similar tools to Jeanette. I like to do a lot of journaling or self-reflection, and I encourage people to find a support group, whether it's an adoption support group or it's a supportive environment among some of your family and friends that really understand how you're feeling about adoption, and you feel it's a safe place to discuss your feelings and know that there's no judgment and you're supported in that. But having a safe place to talk about how you're feeling is important. And then look at, what are your inner strengths? What is it that you know about yourself, and how can you, again, heal that wound, that that part of you, that little baby that feels that loss, and reassure that baby in you that you're okay. And what can you do when you're feeling sad, and identify why you're feeling sad, and write out some questions about what it is that you're perhaps struggling with, and identify, is this about adoption and this wound, and it's more pronounced right now because I'm moving out of my home for college, or because I'm getting married, or I am moving to a new location. Different things that provoke feelings of loss aren't just grieving someone dying, but all those different stages in our life when we are transitioning our perceived losses. And adoptees feel those more intensely. So to understand that about yourself, and then figure out what makes me resilient. How is it that I manage and have gone from one stage to the next? What has helped me go from stage to stage successfully? And look back at stages that you got through and what you did to help yourself with those emotions. So again, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of journaling. The other thing is having, for me, is having an awareness of how grateful I am. I think when I was working with foster youth that were living in a treatment facility, kind of like an orphanage, I realized it really triggered me, and I realized, wow, I do feel fortunate. There is no perfect family, no perfect life, but I feel very fortunate and grateful for my adoptive family and for the path that I was on. And I feel grateful that my biological mother chose this path, because I think it was the best choice she had at the time. So I'm just grateful, and use that as part of my resilience. And I think the other piece is I have quite a connection to spirituality, and spirituality can be many things to many people. Sometimes it's a belief in God, a belief in a certain faith of how you were raised. And for some, it's just believing in a higher power, believing in that you're just not alone in this universe, that we're part of a bigger thing, and connected to each other through this universe. But that connection for me helped me always feel like I wasn't alone. And so with loss, you may feel lonely or feel alone, but I feel like that connection, that spiritual connection, helps me heal, helps me not feel alone, helps me look at my place in the world, and then finding the people that support me the most through my adoption. If I want to talk about adoption and talk about these topics, I have a support group of people, individuals, or I could put them together as a group, and I can talk about it and just share openly how I feel and hear how they're feeling. And that is very soothing to me, to not be alone, to have those people to reach out to. So those are some of the tools that I would use.
Sure, yes, honoring our grief, very, very important. That's our lifelong process. And that's another part of us, our grief. And when we do not honor and acknowledge that we actually have experienced something that is requires what's called mourning. Mourning is externalizing our connection to having formed an attachment and then having experienced the loss of that attachment. And it's through mourning that we learn to move through our grief. We will never get over our grief. It will always be a part of us. We learn how to name it, to tame it. We learn how to acknowledge. We learn how to, through writing, through any of the tools that we've talked about so far, in processing and moving through our grief. We are never fully healed. We are always healing. Okay. So my second step is balancing our needs and balancing the needs of others. So this is the dance that adoptees also have a vulnerability to. We do a push-pull with people. We only let people in so near or far. And we also, there's a phrase in our community, we're not adoptees, we're adaptees. So we're always adapting. This is a vulnerability for us to rescuing, meeting other people's needs first. Why? Because it goes back to my first point. We're wanting the validation. We're wanting the approval. We're wanting the appreciation that, oh, if somebody really appreciates it and sees what I'm doing, that's going to mean I'm good enough. And I have struggled with this. And I have learned how to meet my needs and also balance meeting the needs of others. But only we can fulfill and meet our needs on our own. So as adoptees, because we're wanting and seeking that validation so desperately, if someone has a need, we'll go and take care of their need first, and then our needs are left behind. But what happens is, if we consistently meet other people's needs, we're going to be exhausted. We are going to be resentful of that person, because I'm meeting all of your needs, and when are you going to meet mine? And it's not their role to meet our needs. It's our job to be self-responsible and meet our own needs. So it doesn't work in our favor to be the adaptee and always adapting to others. We need to do, it is called self-care, and it's okay. It's not being selfish, which is hard for us because, again, the ego goes, oh, this is selfish. That this means you're not taking care of everybody else, or you're going to lose this attachment if you don't meet every need, because our fear gets triggered, which is what drives this behavior. Okay. And if we don't meet the fear and we don't work through the fear, it will incubate. Incubate is it gets bigger, bigger and bigger. And it can feel very scary to ask for your need to be met. But I'm going to help you do it a little bit at a time, dose by dose by dose. That's all I don't say you have to do. It's what you get to do for your mental health and well-being, and you are worthy of meeting your needs. You need to get your needs met. So the 5 A's, they all start with the letter A. We have 5 basic psychological and emotional needs. So the first A is I need, let's start with appreciation. We all need appreciation, and I appreciate each one of you here today. And I want you to do this, as silly as it sounds. I want you to appreciate yourself, patting yourself on the back for showing up here today. It's not always easy to show up to Zoom meetings. You don't know what's going to happen. What are we going to talk about? Am I going to be seen? Am I going to say something wrong? Am I going to feel something I never felt before? And congratulate yourself a little bit at a time. When you do one little tool, go, yeah, I just did that. Congratulations. Do you know why? Because when you congratulate yourself, you actually stimulate endorphins from your brain into your body. You feel good about yourself. We need to do appreciation more because our self-esteem has been compromised due to our early separation trauma. This is something we get to do for ourselves. So appreciate yourself for being here. Appreciate yourself for being open to learn some new tools. Appreciate yourself for doing any one of the tools we've done already. And do it a little bit at a time every day for 3 months and see if things start shifting for you. Because what we all want here is to build our self-esteem, lessen our anxieties, lessen our grief or grieving. And these are parts of us. And again, it's when we know we're healing, it's these parts of us shrink a little bit at a time in intensity, in frequency, and duration. And we feel a sense of relief. Okay? So the first A is appreciation. The second A is affection. We all need affection. And that, not everyone, due to whatever their histories are, can tolerate affection. Okay? It may feel too overwhelming to feel too close with someone because it triggers our separation trauma. It triggers a sense of, can I trust this relationship? It can trigger so many things. And so it's understanding how much affection you can tolerate. Is it holding hands? I work with a lot of children and families in adoption, and there's something called the 30-second hug. So when you are hugged for 30 seconds, it lights up the whole brain. And it stimulates the whole brain. And so when they look at CAT scans of the brain, you can see the whole brain lights up. And it stimulates, again, those endorphins. And the most important endorphin, the most important hormone from the brain is oxytocin. That is the bonding hormone for bonding. Bonding is so important in any relationship, is building the trust of bonding, and that's falling in love. And that's when you form, once you go through bonding, that's when you can form an attachment. So affection, if you can ask and get the need met to be hugged for 30 seconds, it's going to do all so much wonderful things for you, to be held for 30 seconds. And you may actually begin to cry. And that's okay, because you're giving yourself the love and the bonding you need, not only with the person you're with, but for yourself. You're also hugging yourself. So give yourself a 30-second hug. So that's asking, can I have a hug because I learned this tool for 30 seconds? I just need to be held for 30 seconds. Okay, that's affection. Okay, the next A is autonomy. We all need alone time. And that could be, like I said earlier, a walk with yourself, sitting and doing nothing and just being with yourself and breathing. And I'm going to teach you the river of thoughts, which is my third tool, to how to separate from your mind and get into your body. Because alone time is us spending time with ourselves. And that's really, really important for our healing. It's necessary for us to go through our thought processes, think through things, and slow down the mind and the body. So alone time, give yourself alone time when you are starting to find yourself stressing out, or your grief is coming up, or you're feeling triggered because someone looked at you a certain way, or you're feeling dismissed, unacknowledged. Go give yourself alone time to slow things down and do some of the tools we've already talked about today. And the fourth A is acknowledgement. We all need acknowledgement, and that's that you exist. And for adoptees, there's another part of us that feels like we don't exist. Why? Because we have had this early separation trauma, and adoptees express they feel like aliens sometimes. Like, where did I come from? We don't have that basis of genetic existence. Our cultural and racial history has been uprooted. I don't know if you know, the sign language for adoption. It goes like this. That's adoption in sign language. I was actually going to do a training and have a plant potted and do this. Have another pot. I was going to take it out and put it in the other pot. And how's that going to adapt and rest and sit well in that pot? It's not going to, those roots need to be rooted. And it's through experience of forming the new attachment that new roots get built through nurture. So there's nature and nurture that we need to respect. So acknowledgement that you do exist, you do matter. And so making statements, you do matter. We all have something to offer in this world. We are all, if you think about it, individuals. We all have different experiences. We all have different filters for seeing the world. So we all are unique. We all get to share our experiences in our unique way, in our expressive ways, through our strengths. So acknowledge you do exist. And if you need the acknowledgement from someone else, you can say, I need to know that you get me, that you see me, and you hear what I'm saying. And all you can ask, and how you get that met, is you say, can I just hear that you repeat what I just said so I know that you hear me? Just ask them to repeat. So, and the other one is we all need attention. This is the 5th A. And attention is listening. And so this is a big one. So it's asking to be heard. And I preface a lot. I have been married for 17 years. Okay, I preface a lot. I just need to be heard. I don't need unsolicited advice. I don't need to be fixed, and I don't want questions. I just want you to hear me. And that will also meet the need of feeling acknowledged. And I need someone to look at me when I'm sharing. So it's asking. I need 10 minutes. It's setting the boundary, setting the precedent so that you get your need met. I need 10 minutes of your time. Can you hear me? I don't want to be fixed. I don't want you to give me advice. I just want you to sit and give me attention. And so what's important in this last piece is, like Hillary said, support groups. We at Celia Center have our next support group June 3rd. Please go online and join. That is our Constellation support group. I run that group. It's for all members of the foster care and adoption constellation. First and birth mothers, adult adoptees, foster youth alumni, adoptive parents, foster parents, and those thinking about fostering and adopting. Because if we look at this tree of adoption from one angle, that's the only angle we're going to get. We as a community need to look at all the angles and have compassion for all the experiences, because we're all connected by this experience, and we need to learn how to give attention, acknowledgement, appreciation, autonomy, and affection, and love, so that we all feel heard, seen, and received. So those are the 5 A's. So it's asking, I need appreciation. I need to know what I'm doing good at. I need a 30-second hug. I need to be heard. I need to know that you hear me and acknowledge what I'm saying. And I'm going to tell you something again, and then I'm going to get back to Hillary. Fear incubates. If you do not do this, your fear will get bigger. So do it a little bit at a time, because as you work through your fears of asking to get your needs met, you'll actually be surprised, and it will deteriorate your fear. So please go out today, ask for a need to be met. And one last thing, therapy. We can't all afford therapy, but you can afford to get a listening partner. And that's finding someone that you both give and take. You give each other listening time. So it could be a certain time during the week, Thursday, 5 o'clock. We each call each other. I give you 20 minutes of listening, and I don't fix, judge, criticize, question. And then you give me 20 minutes of listening, and we just support each other. And so that's another tool within the 5 A's for you today. So, Hillary.
That was awesome. I always enjoy listening to you and learn so much. My next topic is finding your true identity, looking at identity formation for adoptees. And identity is a normal developmental stage that we all go through, adopted or not. Is Erik Erikson's fifth stage of development is identity versus role confusion. And when you are in your teen years, you will go through that natural stage of trying to figure out who I am, who are you, and what is that about for an individual. So when you're not adopted, you may look at your parents and say, oh, I know mom really likes politics and dad really likes football. So maybe that becomes part of my identity. Not only am I growing up with that, but that just kind of naturally maybe runs in the family. A lot of people in our families do these things. And when you're adopted and you look at your parents and they may not mirror you at all, maybe you are adopted from China and your parents are from another country, and you look at them and well, I don't look like them. What do we have in common? And you're learning things growing up in that home. So maybe you all do enjoy eating Italian food. You all do enjoy certain things together. Maybe they've nurtured you to play piano. But that the question is, does that fit for me? Is that who I am? So there will be questions that naturally come up for us. So we have some self-exploration. So who am I? How do I fit in with my family, with my community, with my peer group? Who do I look like? And who do I want to be is another question that we will, go through in our self-exploration. So as I think back about these stages, for me, I can look at where I am now and where I was as a teenager, and boy, have I evolved. So our identity evolves with us as we go through different stages of life. So I could think back about what I enjoyed. I enjoyed watching horror movies with my girlfriends, as a teenager, and I still enjoy that. But looking at now, I identify as a mother. I identify as a career woman. I identify, with different things. With when I was a student, how I was I a good student? Was I not a good student? Those were things that I identified with. So it shapes us. So for adoptees, it's different because some of the questions that we have that we may not have answers to as we're growing up is, who do I look like? And for many, if you've had an open adoption or you were in foster care and then move into adoptive family, you may have had time with your biological family, anyone, and have some exposure to questions. But for many people, there are those ongoing questions with very little information about biological parents. And some of the teens I do work with were adopted out of foster care, and they don't have a lot of memory about their first family, or it's fuzzy, or it's only skewed to be negative. And there's not a lot of, broad information. What do you look like? What were their talents? How, what kinds of things did they like to do on the weekend? And they won't know those things. And that's part of that, helping them to understand their own piece of identity with that. So one of the things we, again, reflecting back on the family tree, is we can look at our family tree and try to answer some of those questions for ourselves, writing in what we do know about ourselves. So if you made a family tree and you made a list of things you know about your father that has raised you, you know about the mother that's raised you, you know about the things you've done together as a family, and you make note of, yeah, I like those Italian dinners every Friday night. I really enjoyed that. That's some of my favorite meals still to this day, and favorite memories. Then that's part of you understanding that's, you know, that's your identity. That's what you connect with. But then there might be other things that you still struggle with. Well, who do I look like? So a lot of adoptees do end up, you know, curious if they should search because they want to know that question. They want to know more about their genetic background, just your medical history, and also just maybe a little bit more culturally where you come from. For some, it varies. I mean, I know some adoptees that are from another country, but they don't have very much interest in going back to that country and learning about that culture. That's not as important to them as perhaps you know, some other things, you know, so it's very individual, whereas some people really want to be exposed to their culture and understand and integrate that into their identity. So identity formation is a continual process over our lifetimes. And for adoptees, it's just more heightened. It's more of a frustration, you know, that there's pieces that may be missing. And some of the tools that we can use that again, I've used is having that support group, having that place to talk with others that understand that frustration. And then also for me to just take my time to write out what I do know about myself and be reflective and think, what have I learned about myself when I was a student? You know, how did I do? What kind of classes did I enjoy taking? What do I like to do as my hobbies for fun? And that's part of identifying my own identity, my own interest. Certainly understanding more about who we look like, I can look in a mirror and know my guess is, you know, I look similar to my biological parents. I have had the privilege of experiencing a search and reunion, so I have that information. But even if I hadn't, I think I could generally come up with some idea of, you know, what they look like based on what I look like. Nowadays, we have a lot of people doing the internet search, doing the, what is it, Ancestry.com, 23andMe. So there are ways to get more information if you're interested in that. But I encourage people to have a support group or a person to talk through, really asking yourself questions of what is it that's important for me to know about myself? What is it I'm really looking for? Am I looking for just more understanding my identity, or am I looking to connect with somebody so you know how far you want to go with the decisions to just get some information or to actually follow through with further a search or reunion. So those are some of my thoughts. I'd like to pass it back to you, Jeanette, and ask you what it is that you've done that has helped you with your identity formation.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Hillary.
Well,
Let's see. Well, I learned as a child that, actually I only learned when I was 17, that my birth mother, my first mother, was Argentinian. And I learned that at 17. And that, when I learned the information, it also felt like a loss of information because no one ever told me this for 17 years. I wish they could have integrated some Argentinian culture into my life and helped me understand that I may want to learn Spanish because I took up French in high school. I wished I took up Spanish. Um, so when I started finding out that I was like, oh, I'm Argentinian, then I started discovering and going into, okay, what is Argentina? Where is it, first of all? So I started going into the exploration phase of, oh, okay, so South America, okay. And what's the culture and what are the foods? And I'm going to experience the foods. Oh, I like the foods. I'm going to look at the people. Oh, I actually look like the people. I also had the privilege of searching and finding my birth mother. And I went to Argentina. I flew to Argentina and got to meet her in person. And ironically, when I landed in Argentina, it was the first time when I got off the plane and I walked through the airport, I really saw people who looked like me. It was as if I found my tribe, and everybody assumed I spoke Spanish, which became another loss for me. But yet I learned some Spanish along the way. And since I've been in Reunion over 15 years now. But it took me as an adult, to really figure out my identity. And I'm not just my culture and ethnicity. I'm so many more selves than that. And I think identity formation is, yes, we have our genetic identity, our DNA, our genetic makeup, and we have our identity as who and how we want to show up in the world. I am an author, writer, therapist, mother, wife. Now I'm a chef. I do the laundry now. And I'm a teacher at home because I have a 14-year-old son. So I have many identities and I play many roles. So it's, how do we think about it in not just our adoption identity, not just what we've inherited biologically, and also what we've been nurtured through our adoptive families, the identity that they have given us the experience of. And I was raised Jewish, but then I learned I was born Roman Catholic. So I then said, oh, okay, I'm Roman Catholic and I'm Jewish. Instead of going, but, it's and. There are many pieces to my identity. And so just having that thought process, you're not just one thing. And I think for us adoptees, we do get fixated. And my next topic is our thoughts. We do get fixated on things and asking why and questioning. So we're not just one thing. We are many things, many selves within ourselves. So you could even do an identity wheel and go, who am I really? I'm a mother. I'm a sister. How do you show up in the world? What's your identity wheel? Just a little exercise, and I just thought of, so that you can see your many parts. Okay. So my third and final mental health tip is a mindfulness exercise. So I want you to get comfortable in your chair. I'm going to guide you on a visualization. And it's a mindfulness tool that I learned from John Kabat-Zinn, who is a mindfulness coach, teacher, educator. And he brought mindfulness here from Asia and taught us here in America how to be more mindful and how to learn how to not believe everything you think, because the mind is highly suggestive. Okay. So if I asked you right now, told you, do not think of a gray elephant. Do not think of a gray elephant. Go. And I want you to really push it away. Do not think of that gray elephant. Is it working? No, because our mind is highly suggestive. Thoughts are going to come in over and over and over. The more we say, don't think about something, it actually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what causes anxiety when we get stuck and don't think about that, don't think about that. So we need to learn how to be with our thoughts, however, to be a witness to our thoughts. Okay? So the river of thoughts is an exercise. So just get comfortable in your seat. Only take 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Taking a big deep breath through your nose. Bring it down to your belly and release it with an ocean breath. We're just going to be here now in our bodies, okay? So you can close your eyes. I want you to imagine that you're in a boat on a river, and it's a roaring, rapid river. And all in the river, if you take a look over the side of the boat, are all your thoughts about being adopted, what you do know, what you don't know, whatever's going on right now in your life, just put the thoughts right there. And you are just coasting right now on all of those thoughts. There's nothing you can do about it. There's thoughts. You can't push them away. They're there. We need to accept they're there. They're a part of you. And you're in the boat, and it's just taking you along the road, along this journey. And I want you to see up ahead, in your mind's eye, you're in this boat, that there's a beach. And I want you to pull your boat off that river. This is an imaginary exercise. Imagine you're pulling your boat over. Get the heck off of this river of thoughts that you find yourself stuck in. Pull your boat up on the shore. And you're going to see the most comfortable chair or couch that you can imagine that you would wish you had. And I want you to go sit in that comfortable chair. And next to your comfortable chair is a table with a nice glass of water. And I want you to just imagine you drinking that glass of water right now. And even if you could pour the water on your head, just feel the water draping down your body, cooling yourself off from all these exhausting, overwhelming thoughts that you just can't stop, okay? And land in your chair. And now I want you to look out and see the river of thoughts that is now separate. You are outside of this river of thoughts. And I want you to see them for what they are. You're a witness now. You can't make them go away. You should just see them, okay? And they're going by. You can't stop them. It's learning how to be with them and be a witness and separate from them. And focusing on your body, breathing. And allow yourself to go, okay, there are my thoughts. They're right there in a river. Okay. I accept them because I can't make them go away. I'm going to sit and be with them. And over time, this river of thoughts is not going to be so rapid. It will calm down. It will slow down. And it will coast itself. And I can tell myself 3, and this is brain science, 3 good things to lift myself up right now. And I want you to point out your strengths. You are doing the best that you can, and that's good enough. You are enough right here, right now. And the 3rd, you have enough. You have all that you need. You are your own wounded healer. And you can do this. You got this. We got this. We're getting through this together. You're not alone, and we're not alone anymore. So right then and there, I was having a thought. I had put all my thoughts in there, and I'm thinking, where did that thought go? Because now I just changed my river of thoughts into something new and different. So that's the river of thoughts. The next time you find yourself getting stuck, go, okay, I'm going to go sit down, like Jeanette said. I'm going to imagine I'm in a boat and I'm in my roaring rapid of thoughts. And there they are. You can even write them down around you and put them out there, put them outside of you. I had a child do that. I made a little kid mental health video. Write, draw a river, put all your thoughts in there and put it outside of you. So you can see them, have that separation. Okay? This is how we work through anxieties. This is how we work through depression. This is the mindful way. And that's the mindfulness tool. And that's my final tool today. So I wish you all well in practicing that.
My final topic is searching for yourself or a connection with a search and reunion. A lot of adoptees consider a search to get more of those questions answered that we talked about with identity formation, that frustration of not having all the pieces of your story and wanting to complete that story. So we have different degrees of which we can answer some of those questions. So again, finding some information. I think I haven't done a 23andMe or an Ancestry. Have you done that, Jeanette?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So can you get certain information? I mean, you certainly know what percentage of your culture you are, right? So it gives you your ethnicity. So you can get a little bit of that and maybe ideas of, they'll give you a list of people to reach out to that may be connected to you.
Yes.
Okay.
DNA matches.
Yeah, so DNA match. So you can get some information, but the question is, how much information are we feeling like we need? So I do think it's always good to write down some questions that you have for yourself. What is it you really are wanting to know? If you pursue a search, what are those questions that are most important to you to find out? Because perhaps just getting information on your culture may be enough. For me, when I initially pursued a search, I went to the adoption agency and I just asked for all non-identifying information. So I didn't plan to meet anybody. I just wanted to know, what was the story? Give me enough information. Okay, so they gave me her height, her hair color, general ideas of what they looked like. They gave me an idea of how many siblings were in her household. They talked about a little bit of ethnicity, a little bit of medical, but then I thought, well, that probably had changed a lot over time. So, so it wasn't up to date, some of that medical history. But those are some of the things that people are looking for. They want to know ethnicity. They want to know medical. I know adoptees who have been born with medical issues or found, in their 20s that they had some concerns and went to pursue a reunion at that time because they wanted more of that health information. So the goal is to help us complete our identity and then to look at if there's more opportunity for connection. Some people want to connect and to different degrees. One of the things I think back to as an adoptee, I had a lot of fantasies when I was young about who these people were. And sometimes what's tricky is the fantasy can be good. Like I said, oh, they were in love, young people in love, like maybe a princess and a prince, and they just couldn't be together. And so what a lovely little story I had as a child. But then I hear some adoptees share stories of, oh, well, I think they're in poverty, or I think they had done some really bad things, or, or they weren't good people. And so then their interpretation to themselves and their identity is negative versus whatever the truth is, and to sift through that there's much more to the story than just, those fantasies that they have. So to get that real information and then base on accepting whatever that story is, we can accept whatever our truth is. So just to hear that. So when you think about doing a search, it's really important to consider how much that this is the first opportunity to perhaps contact someone, and you want to give them room and to digest that someone's searching for them. Because again, with my own situation, she had given up hope that I would search. So, a surprise. So there's the element of surprise, and we want to be very respectful of that surprise and realistic in our expectations of whatever we find. So it is helpful to sit down and do some talking and some support group, whether it's with a group or individual or a friend, to figure out what it is that you're really wanting and prepare for whatever you will find, and write a list of those things that would be concerning for you, so you're prepared and can decide to what degree you want to search. So that's sort of some things I think about. And I think in terms of it, when I had the thought of searching, it had taken me a couple years. So with that time, I was really ready and I had thought through those things. So maybe on a scale from 1 to 10, I was more of a, 8 or 9 in readiness. But that person I was reaching out to was newly getting this call saying, hi, I'd like to meet with you, and this is who I am. And so they're in shock and they're not prepared for that initial meeting, and they need time to catch up and decide what element of contact, to what degree they're comfortable. So we need to be respectful of each other's boundaries and realistic in our expectations. So some of the tools that I would use is to write down some of the questions that you have about yourself that you would hope to get answered through a search, and to really ask yourself if reunion is important to you or not, to decide to what degree you want to welcome someone new into your life, and to not again turn around and reject that other person. If we reach out to them, we want to keep that some level of respect on either end to the degree of the relationship we want to form. So think about, am I ready? Am I ready for what I'm going to learn? And then do some journaling and thinking through about that. My own personal journey has been really positive. And I've had a very long reunion with both my biological parents and extended family, but there are complexities that come up, and some of the complexities can be, learning about history of mental health issues and integrating that, which is helpful, but also can be alarming. So being able to prepare for that. Medical information, again, it can be very helpful, but alarming. So, knowing the degree that someone wants to visit, and having boundaries set up for yourself to explain, I'm so excited that you are interested in this relationship, but I'm still, deciding to what degree this fits into my life. So we need to kind of figure that out together, and not, jump in that all of a sudden you're the closest of friends, but find that degree that you're each comfortable coming in and what that looks like. So those are some of my thoughts for just some basic things to work on when you're considering a search and reunion. Let me pass it back to you, Jeanette, and ask you, because I like to go back and forth. What are some of the things that you would suggest as tools for search and reunion?
Well, first, you need to start the search. I help a lot of adoptees search, and I have search angels that I work with here that help us gather the information. So, what's really important is this. I usually, I'll get my piece of paper. I usually, literally, this is what I do. I put steps on a piece of paper. Okay? Steps. Okay? You can do that. And then I go, okay, what's the first step? Well, I got to search. I got to find who's going to help me search. Okay? Then I go, okay, if we find them, then I have to think about what I want to do. What do I want to do? Okay, so you find your birth mother. Okay, now you have this information. Doesn't mean you have to jump into it. It's, okay, let me think about this. How do I want to contact her? First, a letter. I have people who want to call. People want to call first, but then we talk about that. Okay, so you want to call. All right, so what does that look like? Are you calling? Is someone else calling for you? I want to send a message on Facebook. That happens a lot too. Okay, who's sending the message? Is it you sending the message, or do you want someone else to send the message? Because the potential of rejection is possible. I always like having a middleman, someone who's guiding,
Yes.
supporting you through this search process. You cannot do it alone. We have a lot of people who come to our adoption and support groups, and we talk together how you search, what feels good for you. Again, trust in your inner compass. You make these choices for yourself, because what's really important is, because we didn't have control of the original separation from our birth family, we now get to give ourselves and reclaim a sense of control and agency for ourselves. So we get to make the choices, not our spouses, our brothers, our sisters. You got to do this, you got to do that. It's, thank you for that unsolicited advice. However, I get to make these choices for myself. Thank you so much. I'm doing this. This is what I need to do for myself. And there are many adoptees whose spouses don't understand. And guess what? They're welcome to come to our Adopt Salon support groups too, because they're part of the constellation. They need to understand and recognize what it is, why we need to know our genetic makeup and our birth family and these pieces, because it helps us make better sense of who we are and where we come from. It helps ground us. So then if it's a letter, and then the next is, okay, we're going to meet. Okay, so what would that first meeting be? Do I want them to come to my house? No, I want to meet them at a restaurant. No, that's too noisy. I want to meet them at a park. Okay, it's going to be at a park. And again, it's the who, what, where, when, and how. Okay, how long will that meeting be? Let's say 2 hours, potentially. Okay, and then it's then what do I want from there? Do I want to stay connected to them by email, phone number? Do we set up a schedule, like let's talk every third Thursday of the month because we're getting to know each other? We want a plan of action. And you get to do this for yourself. Nobody can do this for you. I can't do this for you. You need to sit down and go, what is my reunion step plan here? How am I going to do this? Externalize it, project it out. And you can fix this and change this. This is evolving. So this is what I suggest, just mapping it out, your search and reunion.
Right.
And finding your team who's going to help you with this, who's going to support your mental health. You need mental health support through searching and reunion. Very important. You need somebody to help you with the search. You need a search angel. And then you also need, again, your plan of action, how you're going to go through with this search and reunion, because you cannot do it alone. You don't need to do it alone. People think they can. You need somebody holding your hand. This is emotional, and what's shareable becomes more bearable. Heard me speak? These are a lot of phrases that I throw out there. Okay, so we do have some questions. Fantastic. So I'll look at this. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one, okay? Having grown up an only child, I have often been called selfish, so I've been trained to not set boundaries. I often help others, even if I don't want to, adoptee, or don't have time to, because I don't want to be seen as selfish for not helping. How can I respond to people and say no without conveying a sense of selfishness? Okay. So, do I have my list here? Okay. Okay. I'm going to give you some agency mantras. Okay. First, I'm going to say, practice saying, thank you for asking. Thank you for that request. However, I'm not available at that time. Practice. Okay. Remember how fear incubates? You have to do reality testing. You have to go into that fear so we lessen it. So the next time somebody asks you for something, go and write your phrase out. Thank you for asking. However, I'm not available at that time. That's not a good time for me. Or I'm not able to do that. Okay? Practice. And then you're actually going to feel so good about yourself and then congratulate yourself and go, yeah, I did it. Okay? These are agency mantras. Okay? I'm going to just read a few. These are mantras you can say to yourself when you're feeling like, oh gosh, I have to take care of other people. No, I need to take care of myself. I am not bad because I couldn't fix my mother, father, sister, brother. And I am not bad because I can't fix whoever it is that's asking you for help. I am not selfish when I think of myself or act on my own behalf. I have a right to my own body, voice, my own body, my own toothbrush, to know what I think and want, and to speak up and ask for it. Boy, I'm getting emotional. I'm getting emotional because that part of me still questions. Do you have a right? I don't think so. No. So I need to read that again. I am not selfish when I think of myself or act on my own behalf. I have a right to my own body, voice, my own body, my own toothbrush, to know what I think and want, and to speak up and ask for it. Another one. I will not abandon myself when I most need my own support. I will not abandon myself when I most need my own support. And that is not selfish. When I make the well-being of others my responsibility, when I try to change how they feel, no matter how positive my intention, it's invasive and cripples them. With agency, I undermine those I try to fix, as well as myself. I undermine those I try to fix, as well as myself. I have a right to feel good about myself without feeling swollen-headed, narcissistic, selfish, or grandiose. Drop the mic right there. Okay, Amanda? All right. You answer the next question.
Okay. So in January, I got out of where did it go? I got out of a 3-year relationship. This was when I realized my abandonment issues, it keeps moving, my abandonment issues, and how affection was so important to me. I am beginning to date again and have started talking to someone and want to know what is best when starting a relationship as an adoptee, so I don't fall down the same rabbit hole of making someone my whole world and putting blinders on just so that I have someone and I am not alone. Okay, thank you. Yes, really important. Our abandonment issues can come up so strongly when a relationship ends or when we anticipate it's going to end, and we could hold on to the relationship for too long and for the wrong reasons because we don't want to go through that abandonment. So it is really important to be aware of abandonment issues and understand that our need for affection, but we can get it from many, many places. So what I like to do, I'll draw a picture of this, is I like to say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Make sure that you identify, no matter where you are in your relationships, that you are the center, and that you do not just have one person in your life, but you have to make time for yourself as well as your friends, your, if you have a relationship with somebody, that's going to be there, your family. You have to divide up your time for different things. And when you do that, it helps keep you aware that you don't get all consumed into that one relationship. You check in with yourself and say, how am I meeting my own needs today? What do I need for my own personal self-care that I need? If I am wanting to spend time with that person, that's wonderful. But I don't want, a healthy relationship is balancing out wants and needs. I like to say a healthy relationship is, I want your companionship and I enjoy you, not that I need you. I need whatever my needs are that I'm going to get met. I'm going to also look at what I need to do for myself to meet those needs. If I struggle to be alone, I need to look at that and say, okay, let me enjoy my own company and spend a little time alone and check in with myself on that. Doesn't have to feel a loss or abandoned. And then I can check in with my friends and spend time with different people and find a place, a balance of where my relationship needs are getting met. So it's not consuming me. It doesn't consume my day. It's balanced.
It's healthy to be in relationships. Really important for us to be in relationships, but we don't want to be dependent upon relationships for our existence, validation, and worth. You are worthy beyond any relationship. You are already worthy. And that's where the piece, the 3-month plan of working on that first step that I talked about today, reclaiming your sense of worth, will help you be less dependent on him for your survival. Okay? That was the past. What's hysterical is historical. That was the past. And we have this innate piece. If I don't have somebody in my life, it means I'm just going to die. You're not going to die. You've already survived the trauma. Think about that for a minute. You want, like Hillary said, to be in a relationship. You don't need a relationship for your survival. You're already here. You've already landed. You're already good enough. So that's what I say to that. Okay. So the next one is, I was told by my adoptive parents as well as my birth mother that I was American Indian. It was part of my inner identity, a strong part of my identity. I did Ancestry.com and there was no American Indian. I felt like the rug got pulled out from under me. I just thought I'd share. I feel like an empty vessel. I'm sorry that happened. First, I want to apologize. And it sounds like, and I don't know where your parents receive that information. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't get these important pieces to our cultural, ethnic, and racial heritage. It's another loss for us. And so I feel your loss. That was another loss for you. And that hurt. I feel it. And I also feel I'm always looking what creates resilience, what helps us get through things is we're able to feel the experience that's difficult and what's called tolerate it. Okay? And then the second piece is when we tolerate it, we are able to move through the experience, and that's what fosters resilience. And so we want to look at the experience of pain and then look at what we've gained from this experience. And what I hear, you have gained a connection to American Indian culture. Do not now reject that. That has become a part of your identity. Yes, it's been nurtured by your parents. Maybe it was wrong. However, it sounds like you really fell in love with the American Indian culture. You can still have that be a part of your life. I don't want you to reject that now because you've fallen in love and you've formed an attachment with American Indian culture. Please do continue to practice. American Indian culture is healing and their practices are spiritual and it's beautiful. So don't negate the almost blessing in disguise. My sense is you probably did a lot of research and learned a lot about American culture. Hold on to it. Hold on to the good stuff. And again, I'm sorry that happened. And our parents, unfortunately, us as adult adoptees today, we come from the era where there was secrecy and shame, and parents were told truths that were not true, misinformation. So we're still dealing and coping with these losses from many years ago because of the adoption industry and best practices that were not practiced. But I'm going to tell you, we are working, all the adoption professionals in the field, on changing and making best practices that we do get this information. It doesn't hurt us, it fills us, and we need it for our identity creation and to have that basis of who we are and where we come from.
So would you expand for a minute on we don't need a relationship, we want a relationship, but you mentioned the 5 A's, which have to do with another person, right? And where you need another person. Yeah, and I think Jeanette and I were both saying, yes, you do need people. We absolutely need people in our life. What's tricky is when we find a relationship with a partner, initially, very commonly, the honeymoon stages, you put all your focus on that one person, and we can be more, what we'd say, dependent on that person. And the healthy balance of relationships is interdependence. So that's why I make this statement is, for me, I have my relationship, but I also make sure every week I have time with my friends. I have my people I go to the gym with that I talk to. I have my time for myself if I want to sit and read a book or write or reflect, or my friends at work, my family. I'm not focusing all on one person. If I'm focused too much of my time, energy, and brain use on one person, that makes an imbalance. It creates dependency, and that it makes it harder for us to have that healthy relationship. So we have to identify that and then work on, how do I create a better balance for me? If I just spent a whole day with my boyfriend, let me make a list of who else I need to reach out to this week to balance my time, or make time for myself and write that on my calendar and put that in there. And would you like to add to that, Jeanette?
You explained that so well. That's so
Okay.
important. I love that diagram. Please make that diagram for yourself. Put it on your wall. We need reminders. So anything that you're learning today, put it on a card. We need reminders. We can't keep everything up here. And I would say,
Yes.
so thank you, Hillary. It's just
Mm-hmm.
really, it gives you perspective. It helps
Mm-hmm.
remind you. We learn through repetition. So when we keep seeing a sign or a phrase, or, oh, I need to do this, make a self-care wheel. So I do want to say, since we're at the end of our call, not
Mm-hmm.
everything is going to work for everybody. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You choose what feels right to you. You get to make these choices.
Right.
Oh, and I want to say thank
Yes.
you for this class, because one adoptee said it's the first time that I've felt seen, heard, and understood. That
Yay.
really touches
That's great.
both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. You get
Yes.
to do this for yourself. You have 3 months of work.
Yeah.
And so much, everybody. Everybody's appreciating. Would you like to say anything, Hillary?
Yes, thank you again. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope that some of the people that joined today will join you for your constellation meeting on
Oh,
the
yes.
June 3rd to remind them again that that's great to have that support. But I'll look forward to doing more with Jeanette, and thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Okay, well, take care, everyone, and I hope to see you again soon. And take care of your mental health, because you're worth it. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye, everyone. Bye.